Hello, my name is Josephina Pia, and I'll be talking to you today about human resource capabilities. First, I'll start off by briefly defining human resource capability, talk about some of the basic techniques that are central to effective implementation, a few key challenges for nonprofit managers in this implementation, general limitations in human resource capabilities, and successful organizations that have been able to implement human resource capability into their organization. What is human resource capability? Patrick M. Wright defines it as the pattern of planned human resource deployments and activities intended to enable the firm to achieve its goals. Relatively, our own William A. Brown defines human capital as the sum of individuals engaged in the work of the organization, which includes paid staff, volunteers, and leaders, paid and unpaid, which is very important when regarding the nonprofit sector, and I'll talk about this a little more in a little bit. One human resource capability technique is to use the balanced scorecard. This tool is used to encourage an organization to focus on specified operational aspects that will most directly impact the accomplishments of those strategies. It can be helpful in the nonprofit sector to identify those aspects and then use the human resources most effectively so that you can pinpoint what goal you are aiming for and what it takes to achieve that goal and actively doing tasks to help towards that goal. The balanced scorecard can be used to measure a financial quadrant, a customer quadrant, internal quadrant, and also a learning and growth quadrant in each of those strategies. In a nonprofit environment, these internal measures are very important and need to make sure that they support the mission statement. Here I have an example of a Mayo Clinic scorecard. You'll notice that within the first financial quadrant is human capital, return on investment. These items can be very expensive for an organization. In a nonprofit setting, we want to focus our finances on fundraising, but at the same time, in order for an organization to be successful, we need those paid staff members just as much as the unpaid staff members. So in order to utilize personnel most effectively, it's important that the individuals are using their greatest strengths for the good of the organization. The next technique is to utilize the human resources capability model. The aspects of this model include knowledge, credibility, performance, relationships, and innovation. More specifically, it can be used to focus on defining skills of employees and volunteers within the nonprofit sector, as well as managerial staff to enhance the contribution and impact of each individual to promote better outcomes. Key points to this model are knowledge, and this is just knowledge of policies, processes, and organization dynamics. So basically, does everybody within the organization know the structure? Like we talked about earlier within the class, is it decentralized versus centralized? Everybody needs to be on the same page so that the organization can be successful in achieving their current strategies or goals. Another key point is credibility, and basically just need individuals in a nonprofit who can be very influential, a good role model, and will anticipate problems and have an effective response for those problems. Another aspect of human resources would be performance. This can be a person that looks mainly at the outcomes. Is the nonprofit doing well financially? And when there is a conflict, are they prepared to stand their ground in the best interests of the organization? In this case of nonprofits, the board is always available to make high impact decisions and assess situations where it might be questionable if the mission will be carried out most effectively through different decisions being made. The relationships aspect relates to a number of items. It can be maintaining partnerships with those outside the organization, which would be donors, as well as collaborating with other organizations. This aspect also describes enabling everyone to make the best use of their talent, from problem solving to the executive directors and managers actively managing just people issues. Innovation kind of describes just bringing ideas to the organization. It can prepare the nonprofit for change, which often has to happen, so the organization should learn to be flexible and seek out opportunities to champion different ideas and projects that will bring in revenue, donors, and just keep the organization alive. Some limitations in implementing these strategies would be communication from managers to staff. Was the strategy properly communicated to the intended party? The manager may have instructed the employee what it is that the employee or volunteer needs to do, but if the employee does not know why they're completing a certain task and how it will help achieve the organization's goals, they may not be as apt to participate or do it to their best ability. Everybody needs to be on the same page so that we can work towards that common goal. And it just works better if everybody is informed. Another limitation is in finances. Many organizations are limited because human capital costs, as I said earlier, can be the most expensive, and so we want to be able to just utilize what we have with what we can have. But there have been organizations that have been successful in implementing some of these strategies. So Mayo Clinic in Arizona, which is part of the Mayo Clinic Foundation, used a modified version of the balanced scorecard to strategically implement changes that arose in a very competitive environment. The Mayo Clinic wanted to operate in a way that was economically efficient but still hold up their well-known medical services. One aspect that was especially helpful in analyzing the internal aspect was tracking turnover measures. They found RN turnovers higher than they hoped it to be in certain key staffing areas. So by focusing on those key staff areas and putting together focus groups of personnel to get input, some solutions were made. Turnover was brought into single digits in a state where nursing turnover had been trending over 20% for years. So they measured how the employees learned and grew and offered training and education for employees to take advantage of. As the employees started benefiting from the organization is also able to benefit from the employees, because if they have less turnover, that means less money that's coming away from the organization, whether it be for-profit or nonprofit. And this is especially important within a healthcare nonprofit organization. So in conclusion, human resource capability strategies encompass dividing an organization to find individual strengths, because if you don't take it apart and look at everybody, you can't find individually what each person is good at, and that's extremely important and will help the organization to progress more efficiently. Once they find those individual strengths, you can utilize those strengths towards specified goals. From those specified goals, you can always encourage individuals to continue to use those strengths to bring growth to a nonprofit organization. Thank you for your time, and I'll take any questions on the discussion board. Thank you for listening to me. Have a good night.